Act 1. The Long Road Home. The vast, sprawling landscape of West Texas is a place of stark beauty and profound isolation. Highways stretch for miles under an enormous sky, connecting small towns separated by vast distances of scrubland and oil fields. It's a place where a person can feel utterly alone, where the horizon seems endless, and where help can be dangerously far away. On the night of August 8, 2008, this lonely expanse became the setting for a baffling and terrifying mystery, centered around a young father named Brandon Lawson, his empty pickup truck, and a desperate, confusing call to 911 that has haunted investigators and internet sleuths ever since. Brandon Lawson was 26 years old, a hardworking oil field worker and a devoted father of 4 young children. He lived in San Angelo, Texas, with his common-law wife, Lawson. By all accounts, their relationship was long-term, but often tumultuous. Brandon was known to have a history of substance abuse, including methamphetamine use, and had previous run-ins with the law, though friends and family described him as a loving father trying to build a stable life. The evening of August 8th began with an argument. Brandon and Lawson had a fight, reportedly over issues related to his substance use. Around 10:45 p.m., Brandon called his father, Brad Lawson, sounding upset. He told his father he was leaving Lawson and needed to get away for a while. He packed a few clothes and left the house shortly before 11 p.m., getting into his white 2003 Ford F-150 pickup truck. He had an outstanding warrant for his arrest stemming from a previous drug possession charge, a fact that may have influenced his actions later that night. His plan, seemingly, was to drive to his father's house in Crowley, a suburb of Fort Worth, Texas. It was a journey of roughly 180 miles, a drive that should have taken about 3 hours. He took U.S. Route 277 north, a long, dark highway cutting through the sparsely populated West Texas plains. Around 11:53 p.m., almost an hour into his drive, Brandon called his younger brother, Kyle Lawson. He told Kyle he had run out of gas on Highway 277, somewhere near the town of Bronte, Texas. He asked Kyle to bring him a gas can. Kyle, wanting to help, agreed. He told Brandon he would get a gas can ready and asked Brandon to call him back when he knew his exact location. Brandon also mentioned something strange during this call. He claimed that 3 racial slurs were chasing him out of town, referring back to San Angelo, though he didn't elaborate. Was this just angry hyperbole related to his fight with Lawson, or was he genuinely feeling pursued? Kyle woke up his wife, Audrey, and they prepared the gas can. They waited for Brandon to call back with his location, but the call didn't come immediately. The clock ticked past midnight. Brandon Lawson was stranded on a dark highway, his truck empty, his destination still hours away, and a strange sense of unease was beginning to creep into the situation. The night was far from over. Act 2. The confusing calls and the 911 Enigma. As the minutes ticked by in the early hours of August 9th, the situation surrounding Brandon Lawson grew increasingly confusing and alarming, documented only through a series of fragmented and desperate phone calls. At 12:30 a.m., Brandon called Kyle again. This time his tone was different. He sounded panicked. He told Kyle, "I'm in the woods." He repeated his request for gas, but didn't provide a clear location beyond being 10 minutes north of Bronte. He also said something chilling. "I ran into somebody," and then claimed he was bleeding. Before Kyle could get more details, the call abruptly ended. Kyle and Audrey, now deeply concerned, immediately got into their truck with a gas can and headed north on Highway 277, driving slowly, scanning the roadside for any sign of Brandon or his white Ford pickup. Around 12:50 a.m., Kyle managed to reach Brandon again briefly. Brandon sounded even more distressed. He mentioned needing help and that he was bleeding, but the connection was poor, filled with static, and the call quickly dropped. Kyle kept trying to call him back, but the calls went straight to voicemail. It was during this period of frantic back and forth between the brothers that Brandon Lawson made the call that would define his mystery. At 12:50 a.m., the same time Kyle was trying to reach him, Brandon called 911 from his cell phone. The call connected to a dispatcher at the Cope County Sheriff's Office. The audio recording of this call, lasting approximately 50 seconds, is one of the most chilling and debated pieces of evidence in any modern missing person case. Brandon's voice on the 911 call is highly agitated, almost breathless. He speaks rapidly, and the background is filled with noise, making much of what he says difficult, if not impossible, to decipher definitively. The generally accepted, though still debated, transcript of the most crucial parts reads something like this. 911 dispatcher. 911 emergency. Brandon Lawson. Yes, I'm in the middle of a field. Unintelligible. Possibly a trucker? Or just push some guys over? Right here going towards Abilene on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. The guy's chasing me through the woods? Please hurry. 911 dispatcher. Okay. Now run that by me one more time. Brandon Lawson. There's one car here. The guy's chasing me through the woods. Unintelligible. Possibly got the first guy. 911 dispatcher. Do you need an ambulance? Brandon Lawson. No, I need the cops. The call continues with a dispatcher trying to get a clearer location and understanding, but Brandon's responses remain fragmented and panicked before the line goes dead. The call is profoundly disturbing and raises far more questions than answers. Who was he talking about? Push guys over. Did he witness an accident or a crime? One car here. Whose car? Was it someone helping him? Or someone threatening him? The guy's chasing me through the woods. Who is chasing him and why? Was this a real pursuit or a paranoid delusion, possibly fueled by drugs or fear related to his outstanding warrant? And why was he in the middle of a field when his truck had supposedly run out of gas on the highway? The dispatcher, unable to get a clear sense of the situation or location, logged the call but reportedly dismissed it as potentially related to drug activity or not urgent, especially since he didn't request an ambulance. No officer was immediately dispatched based solely on the 911 call. The plea, please hurry, went unanswered. Act 3. The Trucker and the Disappearance. While Brandon was making his desperate 911 call, and Kyle and Audrey were scanning the dark highway for him, another piece of the puzzle was unfolding nearby. Around 1:10 a.m., Kyle and Audrey passed a Texas state trooper who had pulled over another vehicle. They continued north, but finding no sign of Brandon, they eventually turned around and headed back south. Around the same time, between 1 a.m. and 1:15 a.m., a trucker driving his rig north on Highway 277 noticed a white Ford F-150 parked awkwardly on the southbound side of the road, partially obstructing the lane. This truck matched the description of Brandon's. The trucker had to swerve slightly to avoid it. He reported this hazard via his CB radio. It was likely this trucker's report, not Brandon's 911 call, that prompted the Coke County Sheriff's deputy to finally investigate. Deputy Neil Spears was dispatched to check on the improperly parked vehicle. He arrived at the scene around 1:15 a.m. Deputy Spears found Brandon's white Ford F-150 exactly as the trucker had described it, parked partially in the southbound lane, keys likely still in the ignition, though reports vary. There were no obvious signs of damage, other than perhaps minor, old scrapes. Critically, there was no sign of Brandon Lawson. Deputy Spears ran the plates. The truck belonged to Brandon, and his outstanding warrant flagged. Assuming the driver had likely fled on foot to avoid arrest due to the warrant, The deputy didn't initiate an immediate, large-scale search for Brandon himself. He waited with the truck. Meanwhile, Kyle and Audrey, driving south now, arrived at the scene. They saw the deputy's flashing lights and Brandon's truck. They pulled over and spoke with Deputy Spears. Kyle explained that his brother had run out of gas and that they had brought a gas can. Deputy Spears informed them about Brandon's warrant. Together, they put the gas in Brandon's truck. Kyle started it up. The truck ran fine. At this point, Kyle received another, final call from Brandon. Brandon's voice was faint, almost completely drowned out by static. Kyle could barely understand him, but he heard Brandon say something like, "I can see you. I'm right here," before the call dropped for the last time. Kyle and Audrey, along with Deputy Spears, looked around the dark fields and brush surrounding the highway, calling out Brandon's name. There was no response. Where was Brandon when he made that final call? Could he really see his brother and the deputy, perhaps hiding nearby in the darkness, afraid to approach because of the police presence and his warrant? Or was he already injured, disoriented, or worse, somewhere else entirely? Deputy Spears stayed with the truck for a while longer, but with no sign of the driver. He eventually had it towed. Kyle and Audrey continued to search the area for a few more hours, driving up and down the highway, calling Brandon's name into the darkness, but found nothing. As dawn broke over the empty West Texas landscape, Brandon Lawson was gone. The only clues left were his abandoned truck, the confusing trail of phone calls, and the terrifying, fragmented plea for help captured on the 911 recording. Act 4. Searching the Wasteland. The official search for Brandon Lawson didn't begin in earnest until the morning of August 9th, hours after his disappearance. Once his family formally reported him missing and the strange circumstances became clearer, law enforcement realized this was more than just a man avoiding a warrant. The search focused on the area around where his truck was found, a desolate stretch of Highway 277 surrounded by miles of dense mesquite brush, rocky terrain, and occasional oil fields. It was a challenging environment to search, especially in the brutal August heat of Texas. Search teams, including deputies, volunteers, and K-9 units, scoured the fields and thickets along both sides of the highway. Thermal imaging cameras were used, hoping to detect a body signature, but the intense ground heat during the day rendered them largely ineffective. The K-9 units reportedly picked up a scent trail leading away from the truck towards the nearby Colorado River, but the trail went cold at the riverbank, offering no definitive answers. Did Brandon go into the river? Or did the scent simply dissipate there? Brandon's cell phone records were analyzed, confirming the timeline of calls to his brother and the 911 dispatch. The cell tower data placed him in the general vicinity where his truck was found, but the technology in 2008 wasn't precise enough to pinpoint his location when he claimed to be in the middle of a field or in the woods. The investigation revisited the details of the 911 call. Attempts were made to enhance the audio, trying to decipher the garbled words. Was he saying push some guys over or something else entirely? Was the one car here friendly or hostile? Who was the guy chasing me? Despite numerous analyses by professionals and amateurs alike, the poor quality of the recording and Brandon's panicked delivery left the crucial phrases open to interpretation, fueling endless speculation. The theory that Brandon fled to avoid his warrant remained plausible, but didn't fit with his panicked calls for help or his statements about being chased. If he was just hiding, why call 911? The theory that he succumbed to the elements gained traction. Perhaps he ran out of gas, panicked, got lost in the dark, unfamiliar terrain, became injured, as suggested by a statement about bleeding, and eventually died of exposure or dehydration. West Texas nights can be surprisingly cool, and the terrain is rough. His body, in this scenario, could still be hidden somewhere in the vast, unsearched wilderness. The foul play theory also loomed large. Did Brandon witness something he wasn't supposed to see out on that lonely highway, perhaps a drug deal gone wrong, or the aftermath of another crime? Push guys over? Did the people involved then chase him down to silence him? This would fit with his 911 call about being pursued. Or could he have simply encountered someone dangerous after his truck broke down, a predator taking advantage of a vulnerable situation? The area was known to have transient oil workers and truckers passing through. Over the years, Brandon's family, particularly his father Brad and brother Kyle, continued the search relentlessly. They organized private searches, hired investigators, and maintained a Facebook page, helped find Brandon Lawson, keeping his story alive and soliciting tips from the public. Numerous independent searches were also conducted by volunteers and drone operators fascinated by the case. In 2019, a potential breakthrough occurred when volunteer searchers using drones identified some tattered clothing in a particularly dense, difficult-to-reach area of brush, not far from the location of the 911 ping. While hopes were high, subsequent ground searches of that area failed to locate any human remains or definitive evidence connected to Brandon. The clothing itself couldn't be conclusively linked to him. The Wasteland held onto its secrets. Act 5. Echoes in the static. Today, years after Brandon Lawson vanished from that dark Texas highway, his case remains stubbornly unsolved. He is officially listed as a missing person, presumed deceased, but without a body. The exact circumstances of his disappearance remain a complete mystery. The case continues to haunt his family, who are left suspended in a state of agonizing uncertainty. What happened to Brandon Lawson after he ran out of gas? Did his history of drug use play a role, perhaps inducing a state of paranoia that led him to imagine being chased? Or was the threat real? Did he stumble upon a crime in progress, as his cryptic 911 call might suggest? Did he get into a confrontation with someone at the scene? Did he simply get lost in the unforgiving landscape and succumb to the elements? The 911 call remains the most compelling and frustrating piece of evidence. It's a snapshot of pure terror, a voice reaching out from the darkness, describing a situation that makes no logical sense based on the known facts. The static and garbled words are like ghosts, hinting at a narrative that remains just beyond our grasp. Every attempt to decipher its true meaning has only led to more debate and speculation. It is an echo in the static, a final, confusing testament to Brandon's last known moments. The case has become a staple of true crime podcasts and online forums, captivating amateur sleuths around the world. The bizarre nature of the disappearance, a man vanishing after a confusing 911 call near his abandoned truck, makes it endlessly discussable. Was it a crime? An accident? A voluntary disappearance? A drug-induced delusion? Each theory has its proponents and its flaws, but none can be proven without more evidence. Brandon Lawson's story serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly things can fall apart on the lonely stretches of America's highways, and how easily a person can vanish into the vastness of the landscape. It highlights the ambiguities of evidence, the fallibility of communication, and the enduring pain of families left behind with no answers. Somewhere out in the West Texas scrubland, the truth about Brandon Lawson's fate likely lies hidden. Until it is found, his desperate voice on the 911 call will continue to echo, a haunting reminder of a young father who called for help and then disappeared forever into the night.